At 92 years old, Kim Novak just did something absolutely extraordinary. The legendary actress who vanished from Hollywood at the height of her career just made her first major public appearance in decades at the Venice Film Festival. And what happened there will blow your mind. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. This isn't just another celebrity comeback story. This is about a woman who chose to disappear when she could have stayed on top, spent 30 years living her truth in complete anonymity, and then emerged like a phoenix to remind us all what real courage looks like. So, Kim Novak, you know her as the haunting blonde from Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, one of the greatest films ever made. She's been living this incredibly private life in Oregon for decades. We're talking about someone who walked away from Hollywood when most actors would kill for that level of fame. And honestly, I respect the hell out of that decision. But here's where it gets interesting. At 92, she decides to travel all the way to Italy for the Venice Film Festival to accept a Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement. Now, before she made this trip, she was having serious doubts. I mean, can you imagine? You're in your 90s, you've been living quietly for 30 years, and suddenly you're thrust back into the spotlight at one of the world's biggest film festivals. She actually told reporters that right before the trip, she wondered if she was strong enough to handle it all. And then, get this, she heard her mother's voice in her head saying, just have fun and enjoy it. Her mother, who passed away years ago, still guiding her decisions. If that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will. And you know what she did? She showed up and absolutely owned that festival. People described her as dancing through the event like a force of nature. At 92, while most of us are complaining about being tired after a long day at work, this woman is out there proving that age is just a number when you're living authentically. Now, let me tell you about the moment that really got to me. Guillermo del Toro, the brilliant director behind films like Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water, was the one presenting her with this Lifetime Achievement Award, and the way he described her was pure poetry. He called her frail yet powerful, mysterious yet warm, mythical yet heartbreakingly real. Think about that for a second. How many people can you describe with such beautiful contradictions? That's exactly what made her so magnetic on screen, and it's still true today. She's this incredible paradox of vulnerability and strength, and that's what makes her stories so compelling. But here's what really blows my mind about Kim Novak. She was a rebel long before being a rebel was cool. When the studios wanted to change her name, she said no and kept her own identity. When women weren't supposed to have their own production companies, she started one anyway. And when Hollywood tried to box her into certain roles, she fought back every step of the way. This was during an era when actors, especially women, had virtually no power. The studio system was brutal, and executives like Harry Cohn basically owned these performers. But Kim Novak refused to be owned by anyone. She kept pushing back, kept fighting for her artistic integrity, even when it meant making some very powerful people very angry. And let's talk about the cost of that rebellion. There's a new documentary about her called Kim Novak's Vertigo, and in it, she opens up to things she's never discussed before. We're talking about studio control that bordered on abuse, the heartbreak of being typecast, and even a forbidden romance with Sammy Davis Jr. that had to be kept secret because of the racist attitudes of the time. This isn't a glamorous Hollywood memoir. This is raw, honest, and sometimes painful. But that's what makes it so powerful. She's not trying to paint herself as a victim or a saint. She's just telling her truth, and that truth is complicated and messy and absolutely human. The decision to leave Hollywood wasn't easy, but she said something that really stuck with me. I had to leave to survive. Can you imagine being at the peak of your career and realizing that staying would literally destroy who you are as a person? That takes incredible self-awareness and courage. So she packed up and moved to Big Sur, then eventually to Oregon. And what did she do with all that time away from the cameras? She painted, she wrote poetry, she cared for animals. She lived quietly and authentically, doing the things that actually brought her joy instead of just fame and money. Now, I know some people might look at that as throwing away a career, but I see it completely differently. She was investing in herself as a human being. She was choosing long-term happiness over short-term success. And honestly, in a world where we're all constantly chasing the next achievement, the next promotion, the next big break, there's something incredibly wise about stepping back and asking, what actually makes me happy? But life wasn't easy during those years of privacy. She dealt with bipolar disorder, something she's been open about, which I really respect. She faced personal losses, natural disasters, industry backlash, and even cruel comments from people who should have known better as she aged. But through it all, she kept painting, kept creating, kept being true to herself. And that brings us back to Venice. After decades of silence, there she was, not as some desperate has-been trying to reclaim past glory, but as a woman who had lived life on her own terms and was finally ready to share her story with the world again. There was this beautiful moment at the festival where she talked about her costume from Vertigo. She said she used to hate this particular outfit. It was rough and uncomfortable, but now, years later, she realizes that, like the fabric that softened with age, what she once rejected had grown into something meaningful. She compared it to aging itself, how what we might see as deterioration can actually be a transformation into something better. I mean, how profound is that? We live in a culture obsessed with youth, and here's a 92-year-old woman essentially saying, hey, getting older isn't about losing something. It's about becoming something new and potentially beautiful. She described the entire Venice experience as icing on the cake. She joked that she'd always loved cake, and now this recognition felt like the sweetest frosting. But here's the thing that really impressed me. She wasn't content to just bask in the applause and the awards. She's already planning to go home and get back to her painting. She told reporters, "My legacy is my art." Not her movies, though they're incredible, not her fame or her beauty or her Hollywood story, her art. The paintings she creates every night, the sketches she dreams up, the vision that's uniquely hers. That's what she considers her real legacy. And honestly, I think that's beautiful. In a world where everyone's trying to build their personal brand and create content for social media, here's someone who's been quietly creating for decades without any need for external validation. She paints because it brings her joy, because it's who she is, not because she needs likes or shares or comments. So why does Kim Novak's story matter so much to me, and why should it matter to you? First, she's living proof that you can stay true to yourself even when everyone around you is trying to change you. The pressure to conform, to be what other people want you to be, is enormous in any field. But she showed that maintaining your identity is worth the fight. Second, she demonstrated that success doesn't have to look the way everyone else thinks it should. While other actors were chasing bigger roles and more fame, she chose peace, creativity, and authenticity. And you know what? She seems genuinely happy. How many Hollywood legends can you say that about? And third, her return after all these years proves that it's never too late to reclaim your narrative. Maybe you've been hiding parts of yourself. Maybe you've been living quietly. Maybe you've been gathering strength for your own comeback. Kim Novak is showing us that there's no expiration date on sharing your truth with the world. Look, I'm not saying everyone needs to disappear for 30 years. That's not realistic for most of us. But there's something powerful about the idea that you can take time to figure out who you really are, what you really want, and how you want to live your life. You don't have to stay on the hamster wheel just because everyone else is running. And if you're in a phase right now where you feel invisible, where you feel like your best days are behind you, or where you're questioning whether you matter, Kim Novak's story is proof that your time might just be beginning. She waited until she was 92 to have this moment of recognition and celebration, and it was worth the wait. There's also something to be said about the power of stepping away to gain perspective. Sometimes you have to leave the game to really understand it. Kim Novak's years in Oregon weren't wasted years. They were years of preparation, of growth, of becoming the person who could handle this level of attention with grace and authenticity. And can we talk about the documentary for a second? The fact that she was willing to be so vulnerable, to share stories that weren't always flattering or comfortable, shows real courage. It would have been easy to just show up, accept the award, and give some generic speech about how grateful she is. Instead, she chose to be real, to be honest, to give us the full picture of what her life has been like. I think that's what real strength looks like. Not pretending everything has been perfect, but being willing to share your struggles alongside your triumphs. It makes her more relatable, more human, and ultimately more inspiring. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not romanticizing mental health struggles or suggesting that everyone should disappear from their careers. What I am saying is that Kim Novak found a way to take care of herself while still being true to her artistic vision, and that's something we can all learn from. The fact that she's going back to her painting, that she's still creating at 92, that she sees her current art as her real legacy, that's incredibly inspiring to me. It reminds me that creativity doesn't have an expiration date, that it's never too late to pursue what brings you joy, and that the work you do for yourself can be just as important as the work you do for recognition. So here's what I want you to take away from Kim Novak's incredible journey. First, authenticity is always worth fighting for, even when it costs you opportunities or recognition. The people who matter will respect you for being real, and the ones who don't matter anyway. Second, success is personal. What looks like success to other people might feel like failure to you, and that's okay. You get to define what a meaningful life looks like for you, not anyone else. Third, it's never too late to share your story, to reclaim your power, or to step back into the light. Whether you've been hiding for 3 years or 30 years, there's always a chance to emerge stronger and more authentic. And finally,